What's going on, golf fans? It's your boy Gsluke here with our round one live stream for the John Deere Classic. Going to get you guys ready for all of your betting exposure. But first off, look at the averages from last year, how that'll translate to this year's exposure. Look at the weather report as well, and some exposure on Prize Picks and Underdog, and the sports books with some matchups to give you an idea of exactly how I'm attacking this slate. But first off, hopefully this Wednesday is treating you guys nicely. I see we've got a few people in the chat already, so let's hit me up with any questions that you've got at any point, even if you don't, if you just want to say hi and that sort of thing, don't be shy to do that either. But we're going to go through everything that I just mentioned. Anything on top of that that you guys are curious about, that can be process-based questions, player pool deep dives before lock, any specific bets that you want my thoughts on, you can add that down to the live chat. That's what that's for. It'll be interactive. We can cater this content exactly for what you guys are looking for. But before we get into those, let's start it off with the course conditions. So you can see on the screen, we've got the averages from this last year where it played minus 2.33 was the easiest scoring average that we've ever had at this course. In the minus 28 winner, Davis Thompson was the lowest that we've ever seen the winning score. So if I just had to guess based on that alone, it's probably not going to play as easy this time around because that was literally the lowest that we've ever seen the course play. So I would say that the scoring average might be closer to like -2, birdie average like 4.3, 4.4 per round. Bogey average might go up like 0.1 to 0.2 per round. And that's even with a pretty docile weather forecast. So when we take a look at the HRRR, it doesn't look like it's going to be that much of a problem for round one, which is why it might be surprising to hear that. I actually think it's going to play harder than last year, but you have to keep in mind that the scoring average at this golf course is typically in the -1.5 to -1.75 range. So it's not usually as low as what we saw last year. And they did have some rain before lock. They might even have had rain like a day or two before the golf tournament started. That made it much softer than what we're going to have in 2025, because I've actually seen a few players, and I'm actually just going to bring up the transcripts right now so I can show you myself. So 1 second, guys. I'm going to log into the press site and just show you guys the transcript from today. Davis Thompson, they asked him about the golf course and how he thought it was playing. And this is what he said. So I'm just going to show you the exact verbiage from himself. He said that it's playing firm and fast. He said, course is already firm, a little firm and fast. So excited to get the week going. So he obviously doesn't think it's going to be as soft as last year. And the reason why you would mention that sort of thing is to obviously compare it to the year before, which was the softest and soupiest that this golf course has ever played. So I would say that the scoring might get a hair harder, but with the wind forecast looking as ideal as it does, I don't think it's going to be as drastic a change as it could be. Like if it was going to be pretty blustery in the afternoon, it could play to like a -1.5 to -1.75 average, but I'm only going to move it to that -2 mark because of the weather conditions. And we didn't have the pin locations to go through before. In fact, I'll go ahead and see if they've posted them on Twitter. They usually do around 7, 8 p.m. the night before. So let's see if the PGA Tour has blessed us with those locations, because if so, we can get a pretty good sense for how the setup's going to look. And it doesn't look like they've posted those quite yet. So we're not going to have those at our disposal. But assuming a neutral set of conditions, a neutral set of pin locations, I think a -2 average is pretty reasonable to expect. And with these bottom two categories, fairways and greens regulation, I do think that they could get a hair more difficult. So maybe the fairway average is like 9.2 per round. Maybe the green average is like 13 per round, but don't expect any drastic changes from last year to round number one. Let's see, we got a few other people in chat. What's going on? Kevin, welcome on in. I am doing well myself. Hopefully you are too. And what's going on, Jordan? He says, you're trying to leave a super chat, but you can't find it. He said, thanks for last week. You were a one-on-one swap away from the big $25. So I don't know if I have them activated, Jordan. So you might not be able to do a super chat. If you do want to support the channel, though, I always am about I don't really like giveaways. I don't really ever ask for tips. It's not my thing. If you want to support the channel, then just join the Patreon page. On there, you're at least getting something, right, for giving me money. And that's I want you to at least get something out of it, right? And I know last week you had that really big week, but you built that lineup yourself. So I want you to take some credit for it. If you want to support me, though, you want to do that sort of thing, you can just join the Patreon page for a month. You can gift a membership to somebody if you want to as well. That would be the better way to go about it. But I'm glad to hear you said that you ended up finishing tied for 7th. Pretty decent payday either way, but let's run it back this week. Let me know if you have any fantasy-based questions, but this will be the prop and betting stream. But you know that, right? You probably came over here to try and make sure the super chat came to me instead of the other channel I do content on. I appreciate that. at least. And said, we'll do that for sure. And yeah, that way you're getting the content that I'm doing as well. And you might already be a member, right? So maybe you gift it to somebody else. That would be the other way you might want to go about it. But let's go through some props for tomorrow. So I've got a few props I've already entered on Prize Picks and Underdog. Unfortunately, though, a few of the props on Prize Picks I took got ripped off the board. So one of them was Dylan Fratelli over on strokes. If you guys saw the Bet the Number blog I did this week, I have his over at 68.5 strokes. That was ripped off of Prize Picks, which is kind of unfortunate because I did want to enter that myself. I will say that the prop I mixed it in with is still on the board. So if you guys do have anything on Prize Picks that you want to mix it in with, right, whether it's another sport, maybe it's a promotion that they're doing, like those discounts that they post all the time on Prize Picks. I don't even get to see them because they banned me from all the promotions. So I couldn't even tell you what that would be on a week like this. I know they do the Taco Tuesdays still, Wednesday though, unfortunately. But this on GM over the Hayden Buckley. Buckley doesn't even have his tour card anymore. He doesn't even qualify for the Birdie or Better list this year. And last year, he was number 166 on tour in the category. And Sun GM has had a terrible year so far. No doubt about it. But even with that, and he plays in all the hard tiered events, all the harder golf courses as well, right? He doesn't just play all the easy events like some other players do. Even with the crappy form, he's a top 40 birdie or better percentage player on tour. So last year, by the way, he was also a top 40 birdie percentage guy, and he averaged 0.74 birdies or better per round more than Hayden Buckley. And what you got to consider too is that was 0.75 more per round on average, but in much stronger field events for Sanjay. So just like this year where Sanjay plays in all the hard tier events, the harder golf courses, where Buckley only plays in the events that he can get into, which by the way are the easy lower tier field events. They're not the golf courses where, the birdie average is going to be super low. That would mean that Sanjay, even though it was 0.75 birdies per round last year, it was probably a lot larger than that. And then what we had to add on top of that, and why I really liked this spot, was Hayden Buckley has lost strokes to the field. And I believe it was like let me actually just double check. So let's just bring up Data Golf. It's either 10 of the last 12 or it's either 12 of the last 14 events he's lost strokes to the field on. So let me actually just bring up Data Golf and we'll give you the exact number right now. So 1 second, guys. Here it is. So over here on the right side, I have an 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. In fact, it's worse than I thought. He's lost strokes to the field, as you can see over here to the right, in 12 of his last 13 worldwide starts. It's 12 of his last 14 actual PGA Tour events. You take out this Zurich Classic, the T10 that he has, because that was a team event, right? You can't really look at that as apples to apples compared to the other ones that we have on there. But look at all these regular tour events outside of the alternate field event at the Myrtle Beach Classic, where he did finish in T7. Missed cut. Did have the T7. That's a team event though, right? So that's like a top 20 finish in reality. T49, cut. T59, cut, withdraw, cut. Does not look like the kind of stat profile that I want for my players. So if it was 0.75 per round last year, and that was even with the field discrepancies, this year it's probably closer to a stroke per round. And then when you add on top of that, the fact that Sanjay only plays at the harder field events, I think it's over a birdie difference between those two players. So even with the 0.5 on here, that 0.5 does go to Buckley, by the way. If you guys aren't familiar with how these birdie or better matchups work, I'm still okay with playing the Sanjay prop because I think he projects for more than a birdie per round over that Hayden Buckley number. So you have to be careful with these. A lot of times the value on these matchups can be towards the under because of that 0.5, but you can also, in some cases, they're rare. They're not as predominant as the undervalue can be on these 0.5 matchups. Sometimes you can find the over that has value on it as well. So for example, they had a Leishman prop last week that was going against Anthony Kim. Leishman's like a top 20 birdie percentage player on the LIV Tour. Anthony Kim's like bottom 5, bottom 10 on that tour when it comes to making birdies per round. Like that was over a birdie difference between Leishman and Kim. That was another one I took the over on and that it worked out on for. But yeah, in rare cases, we can find value that makes sense. So that was the one on Prize Picks. Unfortunately, the pairing that I took with that got ripped off the board. So what we're going to do to find a pairing, and I'm actually going to be able to give you guys 2 slips because of this, is we're going to take Fratelli on Underdog instead. So they actually ripped that one off the board too. I did not realize that Underdog also followed suit and did that themselves. So I guess not. We will keep it on Prize Picks then. The prop that you're going to mix with a Sanjay here, it's not going to be the exact combination that I took because it is going to be something I took on Underdog that we're now throwing in on Prize Picks. There's I think like 5-6 props that have entered so far for round 1. but we could really go any direction with this. If we wanted to take a positive stance play, we could do that. If we wanted to take a negative stance play, we could also go that direction. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to take a negative stance play with Chan Kim over 68 strokes. I took him for his over 67.5 on Underdog, which does have a multiplier on it. So on Prize Picks, where he's at 68 flat, you are getting a slightly better payout on a two-leg combination. So for example, this would pay a full 3x with these two together. And the idea here with Chan Kim is no disrespect to my guy. He's one of the funnier guys on the PGA Tour. If you haven't heard him speak before, he's from Taiwan, I believe, but he's American citizenship. So, his parents brought him over at a young age, that sort of thing. You would think that because he was born outside the States, that he'd probably have a thick accent or something. He does not. He sounds like he's from the South, from Mississippi or Alabama. So if you guys haven't heard Chan Kim talk before, it is an absolute hoot if you haven't heard it yourself. And so, yeah, no disrespect to him. He's, like I said, he's one of my favorite players for that reason. He looks like he's your average NASCAR viewer in Alabama, with a real heavy Southern draw. That's what Chan Kim sounds like. It's awesome. It's freaking hilarious. I love it. But I'm taking his over at 68 strokes because he'd have to shoot -4 to go under this. And I think the scoring average, just to go back to that, guys, is going to be like -2. So a -2 at a par 71, that is the setup that we have this week. That would be a 69 projection. And Chan Kim, if we bring up his form, so we'll bring that up on Data Golf too. So Chan Kim, he's been crap to say the least. He's missed 5 of his last 6 events with the cut line. He does have a few pop performances. So like last week, top 20, that's decent. He does have that T7, that T5 at Valero. But ever since then, he has been wildly inconsistent to say the least. In fact, he's losing strokes to the field over that kind of a stretch. So for, this 68 projection is essentially giving him 1 shots gained to the field. And that is significantly better than how he's been playing lately. So I like the push equity at that sort of number. I played him at 67.5 instead on Underdog, like I said, just because he has to shoot -4 to, go under, and that -3, which I think is possible. He could shoot -3, would be a hit for us rather than a push at that 68 number. But the multiplier is attached to that one too. So those would be the two that we take on the Prize Pick side. And then on Underdog, let me see if we can finagle a slip. So the payout's going to suck on this, but let's throw in Steven Yeager for his over on birdies. And then we're going to take one of the matchups they have posted. And just like I was saying with the Sanjay, that's probably my favorite prop on Prize Picks. My favorite prop on Underdog is going to be this matchup, but it's Ben Griffin versus Jason Day. So Ben Griffin, as we know, playing godly golf lately. I mean, he's playing like a man possessed at this point. He's averaging 1.5 more shots gained per round than Jason Day. That's a massive discrepancy. That's a stroke and a half per round. And that's over a 24-round sample size. And when you take a look at the ball striking stats, so you just isolate it on the off the tee and approach play, Ben Griffin is averaging 1.3 more shots gained per round than Jason Day is. So it's over almost a 1.5 stroke difference between those two categories alone. So for them to be at a 50-50 strokes line, I thought was just wrong. And if you take a look at the odds, Ben Griffin's like -125 under and Jason at 67.5. And then Jason Day is actually -135 towards the over at that sort of number. You can see that even the sportsbook odds tend to agree with this sort of thing. And, the more and more you deep dive the stats, like Ben Griffin's been the better ball striker, Jason Day has been the better putter. All of that is going to lead me towards taking a 50-50 prop on Ben Griffin. So I don't think they had his line on a lot of the big sports books for comparison. They do have his lineup for the full tournament stuff, though. So if you go to like the full tournament matchups, he's -150 versus Jason Day in that category. But they do have him for head-to-head on Hard Rock Bet for round number 1. And Ben Griffin is a -145 favorite. So if we're getting a -145 prop for even money, it's -130 something odds, implied odds on Underdog with the way that they have the payouts here. I don't think that one's terrible. The issue is that the Steven Yeager prop has this 0.83x multiplier, and it only gives you a 2.5x if you mix it in. So I would say, and that's obviously not the slip I took a 3-leg slip with the Chan Kim prop that I was mentioning before. So maybe you do just want to go that direction and skip the Sungjae Im birdie or better matchup. Like obviously do what piece of exposure, fits you the best. But that's what I did myself. So let's add in the Chan Kim one for the over. And let's add the Yeager one in there too, because this is the 3-man that I took for myself. That could be another slip that you go ahead and mix in. But for all the exposure that I'm taking for any given round, guys, you guys can find that on my Patreon page. I post every single slip as I'm entering them. Also, the stat averages for every single round and the weather report as well to get you guys ready for all of your exposure. So there'll be a lot more that I enter, especially after we see conditions tomorrow. Personally, I'm kind of held up on the course conditions getting harder. My intuition tells me that it should play to like a -2 scoring average, but I'm not fully convinced. I think that there's a world where maybe it plays like the -2.5, the -2.25 like it did last year. If that's the case, then there might be some undervalue on strokes that make sense for some of the players that were more marginal, or even some overs on birdies that can make sense for the few players that they have at like 4.5 birdies. So these are the kind of pieces of exposure that I'm mixing in at this point. But of course, as the day goes on, tomorrow morning goes on, and we're able to see some of those scoring averages, expect to see a lot more exposure posted there as well. Let's see, we're going to go through matchups as well. So let's go over to the Draftkings now. So there are a few matchups that I've already entered. So they're mostly for 3-balls, and they're two pretty big favorites that I've mentioned to this point. So I took Luke Clanton at minus money. So he's -110 on Draftkings. And then I also took Jacob Bridgman at minus money. So Jacob Bridgman is also -110. Both of these are favorites because of the guys that they're playing against. Clanton's against Albertson and Rikuya Hoshino, who are both lower tier players. Bridgman is against Kisner. We obviously know that he's lower tier at this point. No offense. I mean, borderline Hall of Famer, at least PGA Tour Hall of Famer, with the kind of results, kind of wins that he's had in his career. Probably needs a major to actually get into the World Golf Hall of Fame, but still Hall of very good for Kevin Kisner. But Buckley too. I mean, we already mentioned him losing strokes in like 13 of his last 14 starts. That's embarrassing to say the least. So, a Bridgman, a Clanton, they are even money. But in those two matchups, like the other two players are hardly even guys that should be in this field. So I'm actually willing to take them at that minus money mark. And you guys will probably know that I'm not usually the biggest fans of doing so. But if you can give me a matchup against two cupcake players on guys that I really like for this event, I mean, I bet Clanton, I bet Jacob Bridgman to win this event. So I liked them to begin with before I even started going through these matchups. And that's where I'll be willing to take them at that number. But if they were just like some random slapdick player against two guys that sucked, I probably wouldn't take them at that -110. All right. I'd probably want at least like +125, +130 odds to do so. But on a player that actually fits this golf course well, it was a little bit of a different story. So another thing I'll mention too would be that on Hard Rock Bet, that's where I enter all these myself. Bridgman was -110. Luke Clanton was -115. So I did have to take a slightly worse number than what you can get on sites like DraftKings. But I also added in a Keith Mitchell versus Kevin Roy prop that was a round one matchup too. So it was just a head-to-head, not like a 3-ball or anything like that. Just Keith Mitchell versus Kevin Roy head up, and they had them at both at -110 odds, which I took the Keith Mitchell side. I think he's clearly the better player between the two. And if you guys saw the fantasy live stream that I did earlier this evening, on there, I pointed out that field strength has a lot to do with why Kevin Roy looks like a superstar lately, because he's not playing in your signature fields. He's not playing in your major championships like you see with a lot of other players around him. Whereas somebody like Keith Mitchell is playing in all those sort of events and is still playing better than average golf. So that's why I took Keith Mitchell at that -110 mark. I know Kevin Roy was in contention last week, one of the best players in that field, but this is a brand new week. And now that he's matched up against one of the big boys in Keith Mitchell, I think that's the spot to go out there and attack. So if you're on Hard Rock Bet, you can enter that at -110. I believe it's on the specials that they have under the event for this week. But these matchups, the Luke Clanton and Bridgman one, you're going to find on any of the sportsbooks out there because the odds are pretty consistent from sportsbook to sportsbook. And of course, these are just the actual groupings that they have for round number one. So for all of those two, I do post some of those on my Patreon page as well. You can find those over there in the link down below. And to join the Patreon page, you can find the link in the description of the video on there for $15 a month. That's what it takes to join the prop tier. You get access to all the Underdog and Prize Pick stuff, also all the matchups that I'm posting, and all the research stuff that I was talking about before as well. So that's all I've got for this week, guys. Best of luck with your round one exposure. Going to go ahead and cut off the live stream here. I've got a couple lineups to still build before I can call it a night for my exposure. And let's hopefully have ourselves a week, because last week was one of the better finishes that we've had for a golf tournament for quite some time. We nearly swept on 2 out of the 4 slates. So added quite a few units to the bankroll last week. We're going to try and do so as well for this event. And for the fantasy side of things, we've been close, but not quite that top 5 or win. And I'm looking for in those big GPPs. It's coming though. We've had a lot of close calls this year, a lot of top 10s and like the big $5 GPP and the big bucks though, the big 50K prize pulls, the 25K, 20K to first prize pulls that I'm looking for are when you get to first place there. So I'm hoping to kind of punch our ticket through. Maybe it's like Aldrich Potgieter, right? He struggled his first few times in contention, wasn't able to go out there and get first place. But last time out at the Rocket Classic, he was able to punch that ticket through. So hopefully we have that same kind of trajectory. Best of luck, as I was mentioning before, guys. Let's see. Do I have any replacements for Fratelli? No, I don't do replacements, man. I bet the value that I see. I'm not just going to enter stuff for the sake of it. If you want to check out all the props I'm entering, you can find that on the Patreon page, but I do not do that sort of thing. And you know what, bro? I got to ban this guy just being an absolute weirdo. Not you, Methods. Don't worry about the other guy who posted something in chat. If you're going to be that much of a weirdo, bro, go do it with other people. That is just a very strange thing to do. So, alrighty, guys, best of luck to everyone but the weirdo that was in chat there. And it was just like an out-of-pocket thing the guy said. I'm glad that we didn't bring up the content on the live chat. He was saying sexual things about a golfer. So that guy needs to get a life, needs to do something with his time rather than saying stuff like that in chat. But best of luck, guys, with everything that you guys are doing this week. And see you guys for the rounds 2 through 4 live streams as well.